Hello, everybody. It's Andrew Escar, the Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. Today, I'm here with a big W, a huge W, in exposing the bullshit, including a massive Me Too conspiracy update that's been exposed with the Manson case, with the Marilyn Manson case. It's been blown wide open, and the conspiracy that's been behind it, that's been speculated at, has really been exposed with a court filing. As everyone knows, I am all for investigating all real crimes. I believe all things that are actual crimes should be investigated. And to the extent they are actual crimes, let's put them in front of a jury. Let's have them decide. Let's have them vote not guilty, guilty, and let's have them arbitrate these things within a court of law based on the evidence. And a lot of times I hold back on things. I hold back on commenting until I see facts, until I see evidence, until I see opinions that tend to indicate that a case is on one side or another. And in the Manson case, I think we are solidly, now that we've seen this evidence, solidly in the camp of exposing and revealing this massive Me Too type conspiracy. Let's get into it and get into exactly what we have here today. And that is the declaration of Ashley Lindsay Morgan Smithline. This is the actual court document. This is not something that, you know, people are just talking about in Rolling Stone or in a magazine or somewhere else. This is a real court document that has been filed by her. So, you know, if she's lying in this, there's now a punishment for that, right? So if this was a false declaration she submitted to court, there's now real repercussions for her. That's much different than just speaking up on social media and making ambiguous claims for which there's no legal penalty, perhaps defamation, but there's no criminal penalty if those accusations end up being false. Now there's actual penalties, criminal penalties that can be levied against her now that she's filed this declaration. So I give this a lot of weight. I give this a ton of weight in terms of credibility, in terms of authenticity. Certainly it's authentic in terms of her signing it and filing it, but in terms of revealing the larger conspiracy against Marilyn Manson. So let's get right into the document. I, Ashley Lindsay Morgan Smithline, declare as follows. So she's making a statement to the court that all of these things are factually correct. In November 2010, I had a brief consensual, let's underline that word, consensual sexual relationship with Brian Warner, aka Marilyn Manson. During a trip I took to Los Angeles from Thailand, where I was living. Oh, she was living in Thailand. As a new resident of Thailand, I know the type. 10 years later, I succumbed to pressure from Evan Rachel Wood and her associates to make accusations of rape and assault against Mr. Warner that were not true. In 2020, I was contacted by either Ashley Walters or Ilma Gore. Remember Ilma Gore, we talked about her. She was the one who was alleged before to have been behind this conspiracy, but now we know this as a fact. Now we have a filing, now we have evidence in the court that this has been done, that this is a thing. This conspiracy was headed up by Ilma Gore. We now have something that can authenticate that can back that. Ashley Smithline can testify to that in court. To participate in a group meeting of women who, they said, had relationship or experiences with Mr. Warner. I knew Miss Walters from my trip to LA in 2010. She was Miss Warner's assistant. She arranged my travel, and I spent time with her during my trip. Ultimately, I participated in at least one such group call in a meeting that was filmed on October 2020. From this time in 2020 through 2021, I had many communications with Miss Wood. During my conversations with Miss Wood, she described acts allegedly committed by Mr. Warner against Miss Wood and other supposed victims and asked me if the same things happened to me. I remember she asked me whether I had been, among other things, whipped, chained, tied up, branded, assaulted while sleeping, beaten, or raped. She said all of these things happened to her. So she was standing behind these accusations of all of these things and saying, by the way, that they were non-consensual, that these were non-consensual things, much different than if you're in a consensual relationship, during which those acts would be fine if they're consented to. And Miss Wood said that Mr. Warner, every moment was a moment of survival. So claiming that she was always in fear, in constant fear. When I said, no, this did not happen. So she said, no, it didn't happen. She's like, this wasn't happening to me. Miss Wood said that I could not remember. I could not remember and did not necessarily mean it did not happen. So Miss Wood was literally gaslighting her. That's the definition of gaslighting. When you say, no, that didn't happen, and you say, you're not remembering it right, it actually did happen. That's literally their term. You know, once again, it's a term that that side of the aisle, that group tends to use against the men. But in this case, she's literally the one doing it, which is the typical confession by projection, right? She's the one who's doing it. She's using these terms, right? So she's the one who ultimately is the gaslighter. She's the one who's saying, no, you're remembering that wrong. You're just not remembering that you had all these nasty, horrible Me Too crimes committed against you. We're just going to say, even though you said no, it's really a yes, regardless of whether you said no or not. How does that give agency to women again? Can you tell me that again? Well, at first I knew Miss Warner did not do these things to me. I eventually began to question whether he actually did. That's what happens when someone repeatedly tells you that, yes, something is true, even though you say, no, it's not. If they completely say, no, it happened to you. Eventually, at a certain point, you'll start to believe it. That's human nature. On numerous occasions, I was told by Miss Wood, Esme Bianco, and others that these things happened to Miss Wood and Miss Bianco. Asked whether the same things happened to me, and told that I may just be misremembering, repressing my memories, or my memories had not yet surfaced. This is dangerous. This is a dangerous precedent to say, oh, no. You're just repressing them. You're just really repressing those memories. You don't remember that there was this non-consensual, horrible, criminal things that happened to you. You just have to remember them. Asked whether I was repressing memories just to get through day-to-day life, whether it'd be easier not to think about it. They said it was important for people to come forward so no one else gets hurt. So when they say they were hurt, you want to believe that, you want to empathize with that. They're repeatedly telling you these things happen to you. You start to get hypnotized by that. I can even empathize with that point of view if you're in a group of people that's just constantly trying to put that information in your head. I recall in one of these group meetings I attended with Miss Wood and Miss Gore said they could arrange security for anyone who felt in danger. I recall Miss Bianco said that this discussion that private investigators have been parked outside her house and were probably parked outside of mine. I had several conversations with Miss Bianco during this time period in which she told me her relationship with Mr. Warner was similar to that described by Miss Wood. She insisted that I was repressing memories like she and other supposed victims of Mr. Warner had done. So trying repeatedly over time to get her to crack. Eventually, I started to believe what they told me, right? So eventually that's going to happen. In and around 2021, I attended a call in which Miss Wood said that on a certain day, she would post to her social media naming Mr. Warner as her abuser. So outing him, finally saying it despite insinuating it before, but outing him, that's kind of the coming out, making the criminal accusation, opening herself up to defamation. So she's got to stand behind it from that day on. I discussed with Miss Gore making such a statement on my Instagram page accusing him of abuse. Miss Gore drafted the statement and I gave her my password to post it. Bad choice there. And by the way, a little pro tip from a lawyer, never do this. If you are responsible for the things you put out there, if you give somebody else your password and let them post it, that doesn't get you off the hook. It's your profile, it's your image, it's your brand, you're putting that out there. That's on you. And it's very difficult to go back in and say, oh, no, I let her post that. That would not get her off the line for the post in terms of its defamatory quality. I think that this declaration may have Mr. Warner saying, okay, look, you helped me here. You exposed this. You told the truth. I'm not going to come after you for defamation. But this alone saying, hey, somebody else posted it, that's not going to cut it. And by the way, I don't think that should cut it. You should be responsible for your own image, personal property, brand. If I let somebody post a video on my channel, I'm responsible for that. Buck stops with me, not with anybody else. Just FYI. That's part of personal responsibility and part of the law. So the narrative ultimately posted to my account contained untrue statements about Mr. Warner. So saying it was untrue, which she posted was not true, including there was violence and non-consensual sexual activity in our brief relationship, and that I had repressed memories of the same. As another example, there was no branding or cutting experience during the brief relationship, and certainly no Marilyn Manson initials carved on my body. So she's saying, no, there was certainly never anything on her body carved in her flesh. I mean, that's pretty serious. And you kind of need to prove that at some point that you had been branded by Marilyn Manson. A complaint was filed in the lawsuit Ashley Lindsay Morgan Smithline versus Brian Warner. The complaint was filed by my attorney, Jay Elwinger. Ms. Bianco told me that Mr. Elwinger was her lawyer and that I should use him. So this lawyer was just out there filing for everybody. Mr. Elwinger did not review the contents of the complaint with me before filing it and did not send a draft of the complaint to approve before filing it. Now, I do know that this attorney has denied this. This would be a massive ethical issue. He's denied this, but I would not be surprised. To be frank, this is a giant ethical breach. Would not be surprised if it's true, because a lot of attorneys will just zip things off. And if they've got an agenda, if they're that type of attorney, they hear that it's approved through the grapevine, they might be willing to do that just for the PR, just to get it done, just for the social media blitz, to make sure that this really stuck as a Me Too thing. Me Too attorneys are savvy on the social media side of it and pushing the narrative and when to hit the narrative. So I think he might have done that. However, he does deny that. So that's something that's going to be up for the ethics board to review, although I don't have very much confidence in the California ethics board being tough on this Me Too lawyer. The complaint contained untrue statements about Mr. Warner, including that there was violence and non-consensual activity during our relationship and that he repressed this. Leading up to the filing of the complaint, I felt pressure by Mr. Elwinger to go on a press tour, which included The View. Oh no, The View. Oh, this totally fair TV show that always has completely balanced and not unhinged takes. Yeah. And a photo shoot with People magazine. I felt uncomfortable and felt pressured to do it. After the lawsuit was filed, I fired Mr. Elwinger and my case was dismissed. See, so she got rid of it. The case was blown the hell out. I never received any money from Mr. Warner and I'm not seeking any money from him. I have no intention of refiling the lawsuit. I never intended to pursue criminal charges against Mr. Warner and have no intent now of ever pursuing criminal charges, as Mr. Warner did not ever assault or abuse me. There it is, entirely a conspiracy, entirely concocted, no real abuse coming out of this relationship. Looking back, I was manipulated by Wood, Gore, Bianco, and Elwinger to spread false public accusations of abuse against Mr. Warner, Marilyn Manson. I declare, under the penalty of perjury. There it is, baby, right there. This is what I love to see. Under the penalty of perjury. She is now subject to perjury. This is what all of them need to be on the line for. Unless they're on the line for that, they don't really have any skin in the game. That's why I tend to believe this statement by Ashley Morgan Smithline. Now, she may just be doing this to cover her ass. That's fine. But it still exposes the lies, the conspiracy, and the bullshit, which is wrapped up in yet another bullshit Me Too complaint. Until next time, guys, be your own judge. Peace.